A firefighter heard screaming from a collapsed building everyone said was empty. When he found the source, what he pulled from the rubble would haunt him forever and change everything he thought he knew about courage. Before we dive into the story, make sure to smash subscribe because tomorrow we have an extra special story for you that will blow your mind. The scanner crackled to life at 3:47 in the morning, slicing through the thick silence of Station 19 like a blade through fabric. Marcus Chen jerked awake in his bunk, eyes snapping open before his mind fully caught up with his body. 22 years on the job had wired his brain that way. Alert before conscious, moving before thinking. All units, structural collapse at 427 Riverside Avenue. Repeat, full building collapse, multiple agencies responding. Marcus was already pulling on his turnout gear before the station alarm began its wailing. Around him, his crew stirred like a single organism, each person moving with the practiced efficiency of muscle memory. Boots hit concrete, lockers slammed, voices called out positions and readiness. But something felt different about this call. Marcus couldn't name it, couldn't pin it down, but it sat in his gut like a stone. Captain Reynolds emerged from his office, face drawn, eyes heavy. He was 59, 6 months from retirement, and looked every single day of it tonight. "The Riverside Apartments," he announced, voice cutting through the organized chaos. "Condemned building. Been empty since August. Structural engineer said it was going to come down eventually. Guess eventually came early." Marcus pulled his suspenders over his shoulders and grabbed his helmet. "Anyone inside?" Reynolds shook his head. "Building's been vacant for 4 months. Fenced off, boarded up, signs posted everywhere. This is recovery and containment. We make sure no one else gets hurt, keep it from spreading to the buildings on either side, and wait for daylight to figure out what the hell happened." The engine roared to life. Marcus climbed into his usual spot, third seat back right side. The kid next to him, Danny Ortega, was barely 23, still had that gleam in his eye, like every call was an adventure instead of a crisis. Marcus used to have that gleam. It died somewhere around his 38th birthday, right around the time Sarah did. Sarah. Even now, 2 years gone, her absence sat beside him like a passenger he couldn't shake. She'd been 41 when the cancer took her, fast and mean, 8 months from diagnosis to funeral. Their daughter Emma had been 24 then, fresh out of journalism school, angry at the world and angrier at him for reasons he still didn't fully understand. She'd left for Chicago 3 weeks after the funeral and called maybe twice a year if he was lucky. The engine screamed through empty streets, lights painting the darkness in shades of red and white. Marcus stared out the window at the sleeping houses, wondered about the people inside, warm in their beds, safe in their routines. They had no idea what was coming. Neither did he. Riverside Avenue was chaos. The apartment building, 4 stories of brick and broken dreams, had pancaked in on itself like a house of cards. Dust still hung in the air, thick and choking, turning the streetlights into hazy halos. Police had already cordoned off the block. An ambulance sat idle, lights spinning, crew leaning against it with nothing to do. No victims meant no urgency. Marcus stepped off the engine and took it all in. The building had been a relic even before it collapsed, one of those 1970s low-income housing projects that sprouted up like weeds and died just as fast. The city had condemned it after the last tenant moved out, citing foundation issues, water damage, mold, electrical hazards. Pretty much everything that could go wrong with a building had gone wrong with this one. Captain Reynolds gathered the crew. "Listen up. This is a surround and drown situation. We're not going in. Structure's too unstable. We set up a perimeter, make sure there's no fire risk, and wait for the engineers to tell us it's safe to start debris removal. Understood?" A chorus of affirmatives. But Marcus was barely listening. He was staring at the rubble, at the mountains of broken brick and shattered concrete, and something was pulling at him. A feeling, an instinct. The same thing that had told him to check the back seat during that car fire in 2018, when everyone else was focused on the engine. The same thing that saved that teenager's life. "Marcus, you hear me?" Reynolds was looking at him. "Yeah, Cap. Perimeter and assessment. Got it." They spread out, each crew taking a section. Marcus moved along the eastern edge of the collapse, his flashlight cutting through the dust. Rebar jutted from concrete like broken bones. Insulation hung in stringy clumps. Somewhere in the wreckage, a pipe hissed steam. And then he heard it. At first, he thought it was the wind moving through the debris. Buildings made all kinds of sounds when they settled, groaned and creaked and whispered like living things dying slowly. But this was different. This was rhythmic, purposeful, crying. Marcus froze, every sense suddenly razor-sharp. He killed his radio chatter with a quick twist, needing silence to hear clearly. There it was again, faint, muffled, but unmistakably human. A child's voice, thin and terrified, calling out into the darkness.
"Help! Please, somebody help me!"
His heart hammered against his ribs. He keyed his radio. "Cap, I've got something. Eastern perimeter near the old service entrance. Sounds like a voice." Static, then Reynolds. "Marcus, that building's been empty for months. You're hearing settling, maybe trapped air moving through the rubble." "Cap, I'm telling you. Chen, I need you to stay focused. There's no one in there. The building was secured, fenced, locked down. You're hearing things." But Marcus wasn't hearing things. The voice came again, clearer now that he'd moved closer, threading through a gap where two sections of wall had fallen against each other, creating a small triangular void.
"Is someone there? Please, I'm scared. It's dark."
A little girl, maybe 5, maybe 7, hard to tell through the distortion of concrete and distance, but definitely a child, definitely alive, definitely there despite every logical explanation saying she shouldn't be. Marcus made a decision. Later, when they asked him why, when they wanted to know what possessed him to disobey a direct order from his captain to risk his life and his career for a voice that shouldn't exist, he'd say he didn't know. But that wasn't true. He knew exactly why, because 2 years ago, he'd stood beside Sarah's hospital bed and listened to her breathing get shallower and shallower, and he hadn't been able to do a damn thing about it. Because his daughter stopped calling and he didn't fight hard enough to keep her. Because sometimes in life you get one chance to do the right thing, and if you miss it, you live with that miss forever. He wasn't missing this one. Marcus approached the gap, testing the stability with each step. Loose debris shifted beneath his boots. Somewhere above, metal groaned ominously. His radio squawked, Reynolds calling him back, telling him to hold position. Backup was coming. Marcus reached down and switched it off. The gap was narrow, maybe 18 inches at its widest point. Marcus dropped to his stomach and peered inside, flashlight cutting through the darkness. The beam revealed a nightmare landscape of twisted metal and shattered drywall, insulation hanging like moss in a cave, and there, maybe 15 feet in, he saw it. A small hand, pale in the flashlight beam, reaching up through a crack in the rubble. "Hey!" Marcus called out, keeping his voice steady and calm despite the adrenaline screaming through his system. "Hey, sweetheart, can you hear me?" The hand moved, fingers spreading. Yes, I can hear you. Are you here to help me?"
"I am. My name's Marcus. I'm a firefighter. Can you tell me your name?"
A pause, then a small, frightened voice.
"Sophie."
"Okay, Sophie. That's a beautiful name. Can you tell me if you're hurt?"
"My leg hurts, and my arm, but I can move them. Am I going to die?" The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. "No, honey, you're not going to die. I promise you that. But I need you to be really brave for me, okay? Can you do that?"
"I think so."
"Good girl. Now I'm going to come to you, but I need to move some things around first. It might make some noise and things might shift a little bit. But I need you to stay very still and very quiet. Can you do that for me?"
"Okay."
Marcus pulled himself back from the gap and assessed the situation. The void Sophie was trapped in appeared to be part of an old basement or lower level. The building had collapsed in sections, leaving pockets of survivable space, random chaotic architecture created by physics and chance. Getting to her would mean navigating through unstable debris, potentially triggering further collapse. It was insane. It was against every protocol in the book. It was exactly what he was going to do. He pulled off his turnout coat, needing the flexibility, and began working his way into the gap. The space was tight, forcing him to army crawl, using his elbows and knees for leverage. Broken glass crunched beneath him. Something sharp scraped along his shoulder, drawing blood he couldn't see but could feel, warm and wet. Above him, the debris shifted, settled, groaned like a beast considering whether to bite down. "Sophie, I'm coming to you. Talk to me, honey. Tell me about yourself. How old are you?" 6. Her voice was stronger now that she knew help was coming. "I'll be 7 in December. December 15th. December 15th. That's a good birthday. You know what's special about December 15th? What? That's right in the middle of the holiday season. You get to celebrate your birthday and Christmas almost at the same time. Mama says I'm lucky because I get double the presents. Mama. Marcus filed that away, another piece of a puzzle that made no sense. If Sophie had a mother, where was she? How had a 6-year-old ended up alone in a condemned building in the middle of the night? The gap narrowed ahead. Marcus had to turn his head sideways, pressing his cheek against cold concrete to squeeze through. His flashlight caught on something and went tumbling away, the beam spinning crazily before settling at an angle that cast more shadows than light. "Sophie, I lost my flashlight. Do you have any light where you are?" "No, it's really dark. I don't like the dark." "I know, sweetheart, but sometimes our eyes can adjust. Sometimes we can see more than we think. Can you see anything at all? Any shapes or shadows?" A pause. "I can see your light. It's over there, on some broken wood." Marcus followed her direction, stretching his arm out, fingers walking across debris until they found the flashlight. He grabbed it, tested it, still working, thank God, and redirected the beam. And there she was. Sophie was wedged between what looked like a collapsed section of floor joists and a portion of wall that had somehow remained partially intact. Her face was streaked with dirt and tears, but her eyes, bright, alert, terrified but conscious, locked onto his with an intensity that made his chest tighten. She was tiny. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail that had mostly come undone. She wore purple pajamas with cartoon unicorns on them. One foot was bare, the other still had a small white sock. There was a cut on her forehead, dried blood crusted along her hairline, but she was alive. Against all odds, impossibly, she was alive. "There you are," Marcus said, managing a smile. "Sophie, you are one tough kid, you know that?" She tried to smile back, but it came out as more of a grimace. "I want my mama." "I know you do, and we're going to get you back to her, I promise. But first, I need to get you out of here. Can you move at all?" She shifted slightly and winced. "A little, but there's something heavy on my legs." Marcus maneuvered closer, the space so tight now he could barely breathe. The beam of his flashlight revealed the problem. A section of floor joist had pinned her lower body. Not crushing, thank God, but heavy enough that she couldn't free herself. He tested the joist carefully. It was part of a larger structural element connected to debris above and below. Moving it would be delicate work, the kind that required leverage and strength and a lot of luck. The kind that could trigger a secondary collapse and kill them both. Outside, beyond the cocoon of rubble, Marcus could hear voices. His crew calling for him, Reynolds shouting orders. They'd realized he'd gone in. They'd be organizing a rescue, probably calling for specialized equipment. But equipment took time, and time was something Sophie might not have. "Okay, Sophie, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to lift this piece of wood off your legs, but I need you to pull yourself toward me as soon as you feel it move. Can you do that?" She nodded, jaw set with determination that looked too old for her small face. Marcus braced himself, planted his feet as best he could in the awkward position, and gripped the joist. "On 3, okay? 1, 2, 3. He lifted. The wood was heavier than he'd anticipated, waterlogged and dense. His muscles screamed, back protesting, but he kept pressure on it, raising it inch by agonizing inch. Sophie scrambled, using her hands to pull herself forward, dragging her legs free, and then Marcus saw it. What Sophie had been lying on, what the joist had been covering. A trapdoor, old and wooden, set into concrete. The kind of thing you'd find in buildings from the 50s and 60s, access hatches to service tunnels or maintenance crawl spaces. "Sophie, stop! Wait!" She froze,
eyes wide. What's wrong? Marcus lowered the joist carefully, then shifted his position to get a better look. The trapdoor had a rusted metal ring for a handle. Around its edges he could see gaps where light, not his flashlight, but ambient light from somewhere below, was seeping through. "Sophie, this door, did you know it was here?" She nodded. "Mama showed it to me. She said it was our special hiding place." "Your hiding place from what?" Before she could answer, the building groaned. Not the settling sound from before, but something deeper, more ominous. A crack appeared in the wall section above them, spiderwebbing outward. Dust rained down like toxic snow. They were out of time. Marcus grabbed Sophie, pulling her close. "Hold on to me. Wrap your arms around my neck and don't let go, no matter what happens." She complied without question, small arms surprisingly strong around his neck, face buried against his shoulder. Marcus tested the trapdoor ring, expecting rust and resistance. Instead, it moved smoothly, almost easily, like someone had been maintaining it. He pulled. The door swung open, revealing a ladder descending into darkness, but not complete darkness. Somewhere below there was light. Weak, flickering, but definitely there. Another groan from above. More debris shifted. Marcus didn't hesitate. He swung his legs into the opening, found the ladder with his feet, and began descending one-handed, his other arm wrapped around Sophie. They'd barely cleared the opening when the section above collapsed. The sound was deafening, concrete meeting concrete, metal screaming, the world ending in a roar of dust and destruction. Debris rained down through the trapdoor opening, and Marcus hunched over Sophie, shielding her with his body as rocks and insulation pelted his back and shoulders. And then, silence. Marcus looked up. The trapdoor opening was completely blocked now, sealed by tons of collapsed building. They couldn't go back. There was only forward, or in this case, down. He continued descending the ladder, Sophie clinging to him like a small monkey. His feet found solid ground, concrete, smooth and level. He set Sophie down gently and took stock of their surroundings. They were in a small underground room, maybe 10 feet by 12. The walls were concrete, old but intact. And Sophie had been right. Someone had been living here. There was a sleeping bag in the corner, still partially unrolled. A battery-powered lantern provided the weak light he'd seen from above. It was dying, down to its last dregs of power, but it was enough to see by. Along one wall, someone had organized supplies, bottles of water, canned food, a first aid kit, packages of crackers. A child's backpack sat near the sleeping bag, purple with cartoon characters Marcus didn't recognize. And on the wall, drawings, dozens of them, done in crayon and marker, the unmistakable artwork of a child. Pictures of a woman and a little girl holding hands. Pictures of flowers and sunshine. Pictures of houses with smoke coming from chimneys and families standing in yards. The hopeful drawings of someone wishing for a different life. Sophie stood in the center of the room looking small and lost. "Mama said this was our safe place. She said the bad man couldn't find us here." Marcus knelt in front of her, hands on her shoulders. "Sophie, where is your mama? Is she here in the building?" Tears welled in her eyes, spilling over. "She left me here. She said she had to go do something, but she'd come back. She promised she'd come back. But the building started shaking, and everything fell and I got stuck and she didn't come." "Why didn't she come, Marcus?" Before he could answer, he noticed something else. Another door on the far wall, partially hidden behind a stack of empty boxes. He moved the boxes aside, revealing a narrow passage. Not a door exactly, but an opening that led into what looked like a service tunnel. The tunnel ran straight for about 30 feet before turning. Pipes ran along the ceiling, and while there was no light, the concrete floor was smooth, walkable. This was old city infrastructure, the kind that existed beneath streets and buildings, forgotten by everyone except maintenance crews and urban explorers. "Sophie, did your mama ever take you through this tunnel?" She nodded, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "Sometimes, when we had to move to a different hiding spot. It goes to the old church across the street." "Across the street?" That meant potential safety, a way out. Marcus picked up the dying lantern and tested the tunnel. Cool air moved through it, which meant ventilation, which meant it was intact. "Okay, sweetheart, we're going to take a walk. Can you be brave a little bit longer?" Sophie nodded and slipped her small hand into his. Together they entered the tunnel. The passage was narrow, forcing Marcus to duck his head, but it was stable. No cracks, no water damage, no signs of structural failure. He kept the lantern raised, painting the walls with weak yellow light. Sophie stayed close to his side, her grip on his hand never loosening. "Mama and I used to play a game in here," Sophie said, her voice echoing slightly. "We'd pretend we were explorers, looking for treasure. Mama said sometimes the best treasures are the ones nobody else knows about." They reached a junction where the tunnel split in 3 directions. Marcus felt a moment of panic. Which way? But Sophie tugged his hand, pulling him to the left. "This way. I remember. There's a mark." She pointed, and sure enough, there on the wall at about her height, someone had drawn a small heart in red marker. An arrow pointed left. They followed the hearts. Someone, Sophie's mother presumably, had marked the route, creating a trail that even a 6-year-old could follow in the dark. Every 20 feet or so, another heart, another arrow. The tunnel curved, descended slightly, then began to climb. And then, ahead, Marcus saw it. Another ladder, leading upward to another trapdoor. This one had light seeping around its edges, bright enough that he could see without the lantern. He climbed first, pushed the trapdoor open, and emerged into a basement. But not just any basement. This was clearly part of a church. Old wooden pews were stacked against walls. Boxes of hymnals sat gathering dust. A furnace hummed in the corner, providing heat to the building above. Marcus pulled Sophie up, and they stood there for a moment, just breathing, just being alive. Above them he could hear footsteps, voices, the sounds of a building in use. They climbed the basement stairs and emerged into the main sanctuary of what turned out to be the old St. Michael's Church. The building had been converted into a community centre years ago, but the bones remained: stained glass windows, vaulted ceiling, rows of pews now used for community meetings. And standing near the front door, talking on her cell phone, was Mrs. Patterson, the community centre director. She looked up, saw Marcus in his filthy firefighter pants and t-shirt, covered in dust and blood, holding the hand of a small girl in unicorn pajamas, and her phone clattered to the floor. "Oh my God," she breathed. "Oh my God, Marcus, where did you—" Before he could answer, the front doors burst open. Captain Reynolds, Danny Ortega, 2 police officers and a paramedic team poured in, having clearly tracked him somehow. Reynolds took one look at Marcus and Sophie, and his face cycled through about 15 different emotions in 3 seconds. Relief, fury, confusion, and back to relief. "Chen," he said, voice tight, "you have about 30 seconds to explain what the hell you were thinking before I suspend you indefinitely." Marcus looked down at Sophie, who was staring up at him with absolute trust, her small hand still gripping his. Then he looked back at Reynolds. "Cap," he said quietly, "I found her in the building. She was trapped. I got her out." "The building was empty, Marcus. It's been empty for months." "Tell that to her." The paramedics moved in, gently taking Sophie from Marcus's side. She resisted at first, reaching back for him. "Marcus, don't leave me. Please don't leave me." "I'm not going anywhere, Sophie. I promise. These people are going to make sure you're okay, but I'll be right here." As they led her to the ambulance outside, Marcus felt something shift inside his chest. A purpose he hadn't felt since Sarah died, maybe longer. This little girl, against all logic and reason, had been in that building. Someone had been hiding her there, keeping her safe from something or someone. And now she was alone, asking for a mother who hadn't come back. What happens next will turn this night upside down, reveal a truth nobody expected, and remind us why sometimes the quietest voices carry the most power. Stay tuned to see what happens next. If you're enjoying the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. The questions were just beginning. The ambulance doors closed with Sophie inside, and Marcus felt something tear loose in his chest. He watched the vehicle pull away,
lights spinning red and white against the pre-dawn darkness, carrying that small girl toward a hospital and a future he couldn't predict or protect her from. His hands were shaking. He noticed it suddenly, the tremor running through his fingers, the adrenaline crash hitting him like a freight train now that the immediate danger had passed. Captain Reynolds appeared at his side, his face unreadable in the strange light. "Ambulance, now. You're getting checked out." "Cap, I'm fine. Just some cuts and bruises." "That wasn't a suggestion, Chen. You just crawled through a collapsed building against direct orders. You're getting examined, and then you're going to sit down with me and explain exactly what the hell happened in there." The ride to Mercy General took 12 minutes. Marcus sat in the back of the second ambulance, a young paramedic named Lisa cleaning the cuts on his shoulder and back. She worked quietly, efficiently, occasionally glancing at his face like she wanted to ask questions but didn't quite dare. "You found a kid in there," she finally said, not quite a question. Marcus nodded. "Building was supposed to be empty." "Yeah, that's some kind of miracle." Marcus didn't answer. He was thinking about Sophie's words, about the trapdoor and the tunnel and the drawings on the wall, about a mother who'd created a safe place underground and then disappeared. Nothing about this felt like a miracle. It felt like a horror story with chapters still unwritten. At the hospital, they put him in a curtained exam room in the ER and made him wait. His clothes were ruined, so a nurse brought him a set of scrubs. He changed, catching sight of himself in the small mirror mounted to the wall. His face was streaked with dirt and dust, his hair grey with concrete powder. There was a bruise forming along his jawline that he didn't remember getting, but his eyes were bright, alert, alive in a way they hadn't been in 2 years. A doctor came in eventually, young and tired-looking, checked him over with practiced efficiency. "You're lucky," she said, shining a light in his eyes. "Cuts and contusions, possible cracked rib on your left side. Could have been a lot worse. Where's the girl? Sophie. The one they brought in." The doctor's expression shifted, became guarded. "She's being examined. Social services has been called. Are you family?" "No. I'm the one who pulled her out." "Then I can't give you any information. Privacy laws." Marcus wanted to argue, wanted to pull rank or authority or something, but he had nothing. He wasn't family. He was just a firefighter who'd disobeyed orders and gotten lucky. The curtain pulled back and Captain Reynolds stepped in, followed by a woman Marcus didn't recognize. She was maybe 45, black, wearing a blazer over jeans despite the early hour. She had the look of someone who'd been woken up by a phone call and dressed in whatever was closest. "Mr. Chen, I'm Detective Angela Rodriguez, Riverside Police. I need to ask you some questions about tonight." Marcus sat up straighter, wincing as his ribs protested. "About Sophie." "About everything. Walk me through it from the beginning." So he did. The call, the collapse, hearing the voice, going in against orders. Finding Sophie trapped beneath the joist, discovering the trapdoor, the underground room, the tunnel to the church. He left nothing out, watching Rodriguez's face carefully for reactions. She took notes in a small leather notebook, her handwriting tight and precise. When he finished, she looked up. "This underground room, you said it looked lived in?" "Definitely. Sleeping bag, supplies, drawings on the wall. Someone had been staying there, probably for weeks based on the amount of stuff." "And the girl, Sophie? She said her mother showed her this place?" "Yes. Called it their hiding place. Said they were hiding from a bad man." Rodriguez and Reynolds exchanged a look that Marcus couldn't quite read. "Mr. Chen," Rodriguez said carefully, "do you know how long that building has been condemned?" The captain said 4 months, since August. "That's right. The last official tenant moved out on August 23rd. The building was inspected, deemed unsafe, and boarded up on September 1st. There's been a fence around it, no trespassing signs posted. Security company was supposed to do weekly drive-bys." Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. "But Sophie was in there. She's real. She's not some—" "I'm not suggesting otherwise," Rodriguez cut in. "What I'm saying is that someone has been living in that building illegally for at least a month, probably longer. A woman and a child hiding from someone. That raises a lot of questions."
The most important one being, where's the mother now? Reynolds added. Rodriguez nodded. We're working on that. Sophie's given us a description, but she doesn't know her mother's full name. Says her mama told her to call her mama and never use real names with strangers. She's 6 years old, Marcus said, his voice rough. Someone taught her to hide, to live underground, to not trust anyone with real names. What the hell was she running from? That's what I need to find out. In the meantime, Sophie is under the care of the state. Child Protective Services will be handling her case. Marcus stood up, ignoring the protest from his ribs. You're putting her in the system? She just survived a building collapse. She's asking for her mother. She needs medical care and a safe place to sleep, Rodriguez said, her voice firm but not unkind, which is what she's getting. I understand you feel connected to this girl, Mr. Chen. You saved her life, but you're not family and we have protocols. The word protocols hit Marcus like a slap. Sarah had died surrounded by protocols. Hospital protocols, insurance protocols, end-of-life protocols. None of them had saved her. None of them had made the last days anything but sterile and cold. Can I at least see her? Talk to her before you take her wherever you're taking her. Rodriguez considered this, then nodded. 5 minutes. She's in exam room 4. They led him down the hallway, his bare feet cold on the linoleum floor. Through a partially open door, he could see Sophie sitting on an examination table, her legs swinging back and forth. She'd been cleaned up, the dirt washed from her face, the cut on her forehead bandaged. Someone had found her a hospital gown, but her unicorn pajama pants were still visible underneath. When she saw Marcus, her whole face transformed. Marcus! He stepped into the room, and she launched herself at him, arms wrapping around his waist, face pressed against his chest. He held her carefully, aware of Detective Rodriguez watching from the doorway. Hey kiddo, how are you feeling? They gave me a juice box. And crackers. I was really hungry. I bet you were. He pulled back slightly so he could see her face. Sophie, these people, they're going to take care of you, okay? They're going to make sure you're safe. Her eyes filled with tears. But I want Mama. When is Mama coming? Marcus looked helplessly at Rodriguez, who stepped forward. Sophie, honey, we're looking for your Mama right now, but until we find her, you're going to stay with some nice people who help kids. Foster care, Sophie said, the words flat and knowing. Mama told me about that. She said they'd try to put me there if they found us, but she wouldn't let them. She said we'd stay together no matter what. The casual way she said it, the matter-of-fact knowledge that a 6-year-old shouldn't have, broke something in Marcus. Sophie, did your mama tell you why you were hiding? She nodded, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. The bad man was looking for us. Mama said he wanted to hurt her because she knew his secrets. She said if he found us, something really bad would happen. Rodriguez had her notebook out again. Sophie, do you know the bad man's name? Sophie shook her head. Mama just called him that, the bad man. But she showed me his picture once so I'd know to hide if I ever saw him. Can you describe him? He was old, like grandpa old. He had grey hair and wore fancy suits. In the picture he was smiling, but Mama said it was a fake smile. She said some people smile on the outside but are rotten on the inside. Marcus felt the pieces clicking together in his mind, forming a picture he didn't like. A woman on the run with her daughter, hiding in condemned buildings, living underground. A man with money and power, someone who wore suits and had enough influence to make someone flee their entire life. And now the woman was gone, and her daughter was alone. A social worker arrived, a tired-looking woman with kind eyes and too many files in her arms. Sophie Bennett? I'm Mrs. Chen. No relation, she added, glancing at Marcus. I'm going to be helping you today. Sophie's grip on Marcus tightened. I don't want to go with her. I want to stay with Marcus. Sophie, Marcus said gently, kneeling down to her level, I can't take you with me right now, but I promise you, I'm not going to forget about you. I'm going to check on you, okay? You promise? I promise. She studied his face for a long moment, then slowly nodded. The social worker took her hand, and Marcus watched them disappear down the hallway,
Sophie looking back over her shoulder until they turned a corner and she was gone. Rodriguez touched his arm. "You did a good thing tonight, Mr. Chen. You saved that little girl's life." "Then why does it feel like I just abandoned her?" "Because you care, which is good. But now you need to let us do our jobs. We'll find her mother, figure out what's going on and make sure Sophie is safe." Marcus wanted to believe her. But 2 years of watching systems fail, of seeing bureaucracy crush the human element out of everything it touched, had left him skeptical. He went home as the sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that felt obscene given the night he'd had. His apartment was exactly as he'd left it, small, neat, empty. He stood in the shower for 20 minutes, watching the water run grey and then clear as it washed away the dust and blood. His ribs ached, his shoulder throbbed, but all he could think about was Sophie's face, her small hand in his, her voice asking why her mama hadn't come back. He tried to sleep but couldn't. Instead, he sat at his kitchen table with coffee and his laptop, searching. He started with the building collapse, found news articles already posted online. Condemned riverside apartments, collapse in early morning hours, no injuries reported. No injuries because officially no one had been inside. He dug deeper, searching for anything about the building's history. It had been built in 1972, low-income housing, changed ownership 6 times over the decades. The last owner was a company called Riverside Properties LLC. He traced the LLC through public records, following the trail of shell companies and holding corporations until he hit a wall. Everything led back to entities that were deliberately opaque. His phone rang. Emma, his daughter. He stared at her name on the screen for 3 rings before answering. "Dad? Oh my God, I just saw the news. They said there was a building collapse and firefighters were on scene. Are you okay?" Her voice, tight with worry, made his throat constrict. "I'm fine, Em. Just some bumps and bruises." "The article said no one was hurt, but I thought I needed to make sure you were—" "I'm okay, promise." A pause, and then, "Were you there? At the collapse?" Marcus hesitated, then told her everything. The voice, Sophie, the underground room, the tunnel. His daughter was a journalist, had trained to listen to stories and find the truth buried in them. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Dad, this sounds like someone was hiding from something serious, like witness protection level serious." "That's what I'm thinking." "Have you told the police everything?" "There's a detective on it, Rodriguez. She seems competent." "But?" Marcus smiled slightly. His daughter knew him too well. "But something feels off. This little girl, she knew things. She'd been taught to hide, to not use real names, to recognize danger. Her mother went to extraordinary lengths to keep her safe. And now, the mother's missing." "Missing or dead?" The bluntness of the question startled him, but it was fair. "Unknown. Rodriguez said they're looking for her." "Dad, I'm going to do some digging on my end. What's the girl's name again?" "Sophie Bennett. At least that's what the social worker called her." He could hear Emma typing. "I'll see what I can find. In the meantime, you should rest. You sound exhausted." "Em?" "Yeah?" "Thanks for calling. Thanks for checking on me." Her voice softened. "You're my dad. Of course I check on you." After they hung up, Marcus sat with his phone in his hand, staring at Emma's contact photo, a picture from 5 years ago before Sarah got sick when they'd all gone camping and Emma had caught her first fish. She was laughing in the photo, Sarah's arm around her shoulders. He must have dozed off at some point, because he woke to pounding on his door. The sun was high now, mid-afternoon, based on the angle of light through his windows. He stumbled to the door, ribs protesting, and found Danny Ortega standing there with a bag of takeout. "Cap sent me to check on you. Also brought lunch, or dinner, whatever meal this counts as." Marcus let him in, grateful despite himself. They ate Chinese food straight from the containers, sitting on Marcus's couch. Danny filled him in on what he'd missed. The building site was still being processed, structural engineers were trying to determine what caused the collapse, and Captain Reynolds was in meetings with city officials trying to explain why one of his firefighters had gone rogue.
You're probably going to get suspended, Danny said, not unkindly. Protocol violation, direct disobedience, the works. Worth it. Yeah, I figured you'd say that, Danny stabbed at his low mane. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Everyone does. We just can't say it officially. After Danny left, Marcus tried to sleep again, but his mind wouldn't quiet. He kept seeing Sophie's face, kept hearing her voice. Around 8 p.m., his phone rang. Detective Rodriguez. Mr. Chen, I need you to come down to the station. There's something you need to see. The police station was quiet at night. Just a few officers at desks, phones ringing occasionally in distant rooms. Rodriguez led him to a small conference room and gestured to a chair. On the table was a manila folder. We found something at the collapse site, she said, opening the folder. Hidden in the underground room you described. The debris removal team almost missed it, but one of the workers saw a metal box partially buried in the corner. She pulled out photographs. The box was old, fireproof, the kind people kept important documents in. In the photos, it sat open, contents visible. There were documents inside. Birth certificate for Sophie Marie Bennett, born December 15, 2017. Mother listed as Claire Bennett, father unknown. Social security card, immunization records, and this. She pulled out a photocopy of a photograph. It showed a woman, mid-30s, with Sophie's same dark hair and bright eyes. She was smiling, but there was something haunted in her expression. Standing next to her in the photo, his arm around her shoulders, was a man in an expensive suit. He was older, maybe 60, with silver hair and the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. Do you recognize him? Rodriguez asked. Marcus stared at the photo, something nagging at his memory. The man looked familiar in that vague way that suggested someone he'd seen on TV or in the newspaper. No. Should I? His name is James Carver. He's a real estate developer, owns about half the commercial property in Riverside County. Also happens to sit on the city council and chairs multiple charity boards. What happens next will turn this night upside down, reveal a truth nobody expected, and remind us why sometimes the quietest voices carry the most power. Stay tuned to see what happens next. If you're enjoying the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. Marcus looked up sharply. Riverside Properties LLC. Rodriguez's expression confirmed it. Among about a dozen other holding companies and shell corporations, the Riverside Apartments? That was one of his properties. Had been for about 8 years. So, Sophie and her mother were hiding in a building owned by the man they were hiding from. Looks that way. Classic hiding in plain sight. The building was condemned, off everyone's radar. Probably figured it was the last place anyone would look. Marcus studied the photograph again, focusing on Claire Bennett's face. She looked tired, scared, but determined. What was she to him? Employee? Tenant? Rodriguez pulled out another document. According to the records we've found, Claire Bennett worked as a bookkeeper for Carver Development Group from 2015 to 2019. She was let go in March of 2019, supposedly for downsizing. Right around when Sophie would have been 18 months old. Exactly. Rodriguez leaned back in her chair. Here's where it gets interesting. I pulled financial records for Claire Bennett. After she was let go, she didn't apply for unemployment. Didn't get another job, at least not one that shows up on any official payroll. But she was making rent payments on a small apartment across town until about 4 months ago. Cash payments, according to the landlord. Someone was supporting her. That's my thinking. And when the money stopped or the situation changed, she ended up in that condemned building with her daughter. Marcus felt sick. You think Carver was paying her to stay quiet about something? I think Claire Bennett knew something that made her valuable while she kept her mouth shut and dangerous if she didn't. The question is what? Rodriguez pulled out more documents from the folder. Bank statements, photocopied ledgers, printed spreadsheets. The box also contained these. Financial records, some going back 5 years. At first glance, they look like standard accounting documents for Carver's various properties and businesses, but if you know what to look for, and I had our financial crimes unit take a look, there are some irregularities.
What kind of irregularities? The kind that suggest money laundering. Properties sold for well below market value to shell companies, then resold at massive markups. Rental income that doesn't match occupancy rates. Construction costs that are wildly inflated. Someone with knowledge of bookkeeping and access to the real numbers could document a pattern of fraud that would bring down everything Carver has built. Marcus stared at the documents spread across the table. Claire was building a case against him. More than that, she was documenting it meticulously, probably over years. These aren't just random files. This is organized, thorough. Someone spent a lot of time putting this together. And Carver found out. Rodriguez nodded grimly. My guess. He realized what she was doing, cut off her money, and started looking for her. She went underground, literally, and stayed hidden for months, until the building came down. Where is she now? Marcus asked, though part of him already knew the answer. Rodriguez's expression confirmed his fears. 3 days ago, a woman's body was pulled from the Riverside River about 15 miles downstream. Jane Doe, no ID, no missing persons report matching her description. Until now. The room felt suddenly airless. Marcus gripped the edge of the table. Claire. We're waiting on DNA confirmation, but the physical description matches. Mid-30s, dark hair, approximately 5'4". She'd been in the water for several days. Sophie, Marcus said, his voice rough. Does Sophie know? Not yet. We wanted to confirm the identity first, and honestly, Mr. Chen, we wanted to talk to you before we proceed. Why me? Rodriguez gathered the documents back into the folder. Because that little girl trusts you. Because you're the one who pulled her out of hell and kept her safe. And because when we tell her that her mother is dead, she's going to need someone she feels safe with nearby. Marcus closed his eyes, thinking of Sophie's face, her small hand in his, her voice asking when her mama was coming back. When? Tomorrow morning. We're having her brought from the temporary foster placement to a child advocacy center. Neutral ground, trained counselors. You don't have to be there, but I think it would help if you were. Marcus opened his eyes and met Rodriguez's gaze. I'll be there. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he sat in his living room, lights off, staring out the window at the city lights. His phone buzzed around midnight. A text from Emma. Dad, I found something. Claire Bennett worked for Carver Development, but before that, she worked for the county assessor's office. She would have had access to property records, tax documents, everything. If she was building a case against Carver, she'd know exactly where to look and what to document. This is bigger than fraud. This could be racketeering, tax evasion, maybe even worse. Call me when you can. Marcus read the text 3 times, then called her. She answered on the first ring. Dad, this guy Carver, he's connected. I mean, really connected. City council, state representatives, even has ties to the governor's office. If Claire was going to expose him, she wasn't just taking down a businessman. She was threatening to expose a whole network of corruption. And someone killed her for it. Emma's silence was answer enough. Finally, she said, Dad, you need to be careful. If Carver realizes that little girl's mother left evidence behind, if he knows there are documents, he'll come for Sophie. Exactly. You need to tell Detective Rodriguez everything, all of it, and you need to make sure Sophie is protected. After they hung up, Marcus forwarded Emma's text to Rodriguez, along with a message. We need to talk about protective custody for Sophie. The response came 5 minutes later. Already working on it. See you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Marcus finally fell asleep around 4 in the morning, his dreams filled with underground rooms and small hands reaching through rubble and a woman's voice he'd never heard asking him to keep her daughter safe. He woke to his alarm at 7, showered, dressed in clean clothes. His ribs were a spectacular array of purple and yellow bruises, his shoulder stiff and sore, but his mind was clear, focused on what needed to happen. The Child Advocacy Center was a low building designed to look friendly and non-threatening, with colorful murals on the walls and toys visible through windows. Rodriguez met him in the parking lot. She's already inside with a counselor. They're preparing her, but honestly, there's no good way to tell a 6-year-old her mother is dead. Is the identification confirmed? Rodriguez nodded. DNA came back an hour ago. It's Claire Bennett. Cause of death was drowning, but there were bruises on her arms consistent with being held under. The medical examiner is ruling it a homicide. Marcus felt rage bloom in his chest, hot and violent. Carver. We don't have evidence linking him directly, yet. But we're building a case. The documents Claire left, the financial records, it's enough to start pulling threads. The FBI is getting involved. And in the meantime, Sophie is in foster care, unprotected. Actually, Rodriguez said, I pulled some strings. She's being placed in a specialized foster home, one we use for witnesses and children in dangerous situations. The foster parents are former law enforcement, the house is secure, and there will be regular check-ins. It wasn't enough, Marcus thought. It would never be enough. But it was something. They went inside. Sophie was in a small room painted cheerful yellow, sitting on a couch with a woman Marcus assumed was the counselor. When Sophie saw him, she jumped up and ran to him, and he caught her, lifting her up despite his protesting ribs. Marcus, I knew you'd come. I told them you would. He held her close, feeling her small heart beating against his chest. Of course I came, kiddo. I promised, didn't I? The counselor, introduced as Dr. Sarah Mitchell, gestured for everyone to sit. Marcus sat on the couch with Sophie pressed against his side, her hand gripping his like a lifeline. Dr. Mitchell knelt in front of them, her expression gentle but serious. Sophie, honey, Detective Rodriguez and I need to talk to you about your mama. Sophie's grip tightened. Did you find her? Is she okay? Can I see her? The counselor glanced at Rodriguez, who nodded. Sophie, your mama loved you very much. She did everything she could to keep you safe. But sometimes, even when people try their hardest, bad things happen. Sophie's eyes widened, filling with tears. No, she's okay. She has to be okay. Sophie, Dr. Mitchell said softly, your mama died. She was trying to protect you, trying to make sure you were safe, and something very bad happened to her. The sound Sophie made was something Marcus would hear in his nightmares for years to come. It was a keening wail, the sound of a child's world shattering. She turned into Marcus, burying her face in his chest, her small body shaking with sobs. He held her, one hand on her back, the other cradling her head, and felt his own tears running down his face. Dr. Mitchell and Rodriguez gave them space, stepping back, letting the grief run its course. She promised, Sophie sobbed into his shirt. She promised she'd come back. She promised we'd be safe. I know, sweetheart, I know. The bad man, he found her, didn't he? He hurt her because of his secrets. Marcus looked at Rodriguez over Sophie's head. The detective's face was grim, confirming what they both knew. Sophie, your mama was very brave. She was trying to do the right thing, trying to stop the bad man from hurting other people. And she made sure you were safe. That's why she showed you the hiding place. Why she taught you to be careful. Sophie pulled back, her face streaked with tears, eyes red and swollen. Is he going to come for me too? Am I safe? Before Marcus could answer, Rodriguez knelt beside them. Sophie, I promise you, we are going to make sure you're safe. The bad man is not going to hurt you. We have people watching out for you now, making sure nothing happens to you. But Mama said people couldn't stop him. She said he was too powerful, that he could make bad things disappear. The casual way she repeated her mother's words, the knowledge that no 6-year-old should have, broke Marcus's heart all over again. He cupped her face gently in his hands. Sophie, your mama was right to be careful. But she also left something behind, something that's going to help us stop the bad man. Documents, papers that show all the wrong things he did. Your mama was smart, and she was brave, and because of what she did, we can make sure he can't hurt anyone else. Sophie searched his face. Promise? I promise. It was a promise he had no business making, no authority to guarantee. But looking into this little girl's devastated face, he couldn't do anything else. They spent another hour at the center. Dr. Mitchell talked Sophie through what would happen next. explained the foster home, assured her that she could take her time grieving. Rodriguez showed Sophie a picture of the foster parents, a kind-looking couple named the Harpers, and their house with its big backyard and a dog named Biscuit. When it was time to go, Sophie clung to Marcus. "Will you visit me, please? I don't want to be alone." "I'll visit as often as they let me, I promise. And I'll call to check on you. You're not alone, Sophie. Not anymore." As Rodriguez led Sophie out to the car that would take her to the Harper's house, Marcus stood in the parking lot and watched them go. His phone buzzed, a text from Captain Reynolds. "Office tomorrow, 8 a.m. We need to talk about your future with the department." Marcus deleted the text without responding. Right now, his future with the department was the least of his concerns. Somewhere in this city, a man who'd killed to protect his secrets was walking free, and a little girl who'd lost everything was depending on strangers to keep her safe. Marcus made a decision standing there in that parking lot. He'd spent 2 years sleepwalking through life, doing his job, going through motions, waiting for something to change. Well, something had changed. A 6-year-old girl with bright eyes and her mother's courage had changed everything. He pulled out his phone and called Emma. "I need your help, all of it. Every investigative tool you have, every contact, every resource. We're taking Carver down." His daughter didn't hesitate. "I'm on the next flight out. Send me everything you have." As the sun set over the city, Marcus Chen went home and began organizing everything he knew about the case. Documents, photos, timelines. He spread it all out on his kitchen table and stared at it, seeing the pattern emerge. Claire Bennett had been building towards something, documenting everything, preparing to blow the whistle on a system of corruption that ran deep. She'd died before she could finish, but she'd left behind a daughter who'd survived and evidence that could still bring the truth to light. And she'd left Marcus, a broken firefighter who'd found purpose again in a promise to a little girl. He worked through the night, coffee going cold beside him, building his own case. By morning, he had a plan. It was risky, probably illegal in places, and would almost certainly cost him his job. But some promises were worth keeping, no matter the cost. Marcus stood in Captain Reynolds' office at exactly 8 a.m., still wearing the clothes he'd worked in all night. His eyes felt like sandpaper, his jaw tight with exhaustion and determination. Reynolds sat behind his desk, hands folded, expression unreadable. "Close the door, Chen," Marcus did, then remained standing. He wasn't going to make this easy by sitting down, by pretending this was just another disciplinary meeting. Reynolds sighed, the sound heavy with years of hard decisions. "I've been doing this job for 34 years. In that time, I've seen firefighters do brave things, stupid things, and sometimes both at once. What you did 2 nights ago falls into that last category." "Cap!" Reynolds held up a hand. "I'm not finished. You disobeyed a direct order. You entered an unstable structure against protocol. You put yourself at risk, and by extension, you put the entire department at risk. If that building had come down while you were inside, we would have lost you. If we'd sent people in after you and lost them too, that would have been on you." Marcus kept his expression neutral, but his hands clenched at his sides. "That said," Reynolds continued, his voice softening slightly, "you also saved a little girl's life. A child who would have died alone in the dark if you hadn't listened to your gut. The mayor's office has been calling. They want to give you a commendation, do a whole ceremony, make you a hero." "I don't want a ceremony. I know you don't. Which is one of the reasons I've always respected you, Marcus. You've never been in this for glory." Reynolds leaned back in his chair. "But I can't ignore the protocol violations. I'm suspending you for 2 weeks without pay. It's the minimum I can do and still maintain department integrity." Marcus had expected as much. 2 weeks was nothing. "Understood." "That being said," Reynolds added, his expression shifting to something almost conspiratorial, "I'm also mandating that you take those 2 weeks as personal time to recover from the physical and emotional trauma of the rescue. What you do with that time is your business." Their eyes met, and Marcus understood. Reynolds was giving him cover, giving him space to do what needed to be done. "Thank you, Cap."
"Don't thank me. Just don't make me regret this."
Reynolds stood, extended his hand.
"And Marcus? That little girl is lucky you were there. Make sure whatever you're planning to do next doesn't get you killed. She's already lost one person who tried to protect her."
Marcus shook his hand and left the station. His truck was parked in the lot, and sitting on the hood was Emma. His daughter had arrived sometime in the night, and she looked as tired as he felt. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, her jeans and northwestern hoodie rumpled from travel.
"You look like hell," she said by way of greeting. "Right back at you."
Marcus unlocked the truck and they both climbed in.
"I wasn't expecting you until this afternoon."
"I caught the red-eye. Figured you could use the help sooner rather than later." She pulled out her laptop, balanced it on her knees as Marcus started driving. "I've been digging all night. James Carver is dirty, Dad. Really dirty, but he's also really careful." "Tell me what you found."
Emma opened a series of files on her screen. "Carver Development Group has been operating in Riverside County for 23 years. In that time, they've acquired over 200 properties, developed 43 commercial projects, and generated an estimated $300 million in revenue. On paper, everything looks legitimate. Property acquisitions, construction permits, rental income, all filed properly. But if you cross-reference the property purchases with county assessment records, patterns emerge. Carver has a habit of buying properties that are about to be rezoned or condemned. He pays bottom dollar, waits for the city to declare the area blighted, then swoops in with redevelopment proposals that get fast-tracked through city council." Marcus navigated through morning traffic, heading toward his apartment. "Let me guess. City council members who vote in favor of his projects also receive campaign donations from Carver." "Not directly. That would be too obvious. But shell companies and PACs tied to Carver? Absolutely. I found donation records going back 15 years. Every council member currently serving has received money from organizations that trace back to Carver in one way or another." "Including the mayor?" Emma nodded. "Especially the mayor. Thomas Brennan has received over $400,000 in campaign contributions over the last 3 election cycles, all from sources connected to Carver." Marcus felt the pieces clicking together. So Carver buys properties cheap, uses his political connections to get favorable zoning, develops them, and profits. That's shady, but not necessarily illegal. "Right, except Claire Bennett's documents show something else." Emma pulled up a spreadsheet. She documented property sales where Carver sold buildings to shell companies for inflated prices. Then those shell companies claimed losses for tax purposes. Money goes in one door, comes out another, and suddenly taxable income disappears. Money laundering. On a massive scale, and that's not all. Emma's fingers flew across the keyboard. Some of these properties, the ones marked as under development in Carver's records, they're not being developed at all. They're sitting empty. But Carver's companies are claiming construction costs, ordering materials, paying contractors. Except the contractors don't exist. The materials never arrive. It's all paper transactions designed to justify moving money around. Marcus pulled into his apartment complex and parked. They sat in the truck, Emma's laptop glowing between them. "How much money are we talking about?" "Based on Claire's documentation, over the last 5 years alone, probably $50 to $70 million in fraudulent transactions. That's federal RICO territory, tax evasion, wire fraud, and that's just what Claire was able to document." She was going to blow the whistle. Emma closed her laptop and looked at her father. She was building an airtight case. The documents we have are meticulous. She had bank statements, shell company filings, forged invoices, everything. If she'd gone to the FBI with this, Carver would have been finished. So he killed her. The words hung in the air between them. Emma's expression hardened. "That's what I think. Claire stopped showing up to work in March of 2019. According to her employment records, she was let go during downsizing. But I found her separation agreement.
Carver Development paid her $75,000 in severance for a bookkeeping position that typically pays $40,000 a year. That's hush money. He paid her to keep quiet about what she knew. For a while. But at some point, Claire decided silence wasn't enough. Maybe she had a crisis of conscience. Maybe she was scared for Sophie's future. Whatever the reason, she started documenting everything. And when Carver found out, he cut off the money and came after her. Marcus stared out the windshield at the morning sun, painting his apartment building in shades of gold. She ran, took Sophie, and went underground, literally. She was protecting her daughter the only way she knew how. And she was still compiling evidence, still building the case. She must have known the risk, must have known Carver would never stop looking for her, but she did it anyway. They went inside, and Marcus made coffee while Emma set up a command center at his kitchen table. She spread out printed documents, photos, maps of Riverside County with properties marked in different colors. It looked like something from a crime show, except this was real. Claire Bennett was really dead. Sophie was really orphaned. And James Carver was really walking free. "The question is," Emma said, accepting a mug of coffee, "what do we do with all this?" Marcus sat down across from her. "We give it to Detective Rodriguez. Let the FBI handle it." "Dad, you know that could take months, maybe years. White-collar crime cases are complex. Carver has expensive lawyers. Even with Claire's documentation, proving his direct involvement in her death is going to be nearly impossible." "So, what are you suggesting?" Emma met his eyes. "I'm a journalist. What I do is tell stories that need to be told. If we can't put Carver in prison immediately, we can destroy his reputation, his business, his political connections. We expose everything in a way that's so public, so undeniable that even his lawyers can't spin it." Marcus understood what she was proposing. "You want to publish the story. I want to publish everything. A full investigative report documenting 23 years of fraud, corruption, and murder. I have contacts at the Chicago Tribune who would run this as a series. But I need more than just documents. I need witnesses, corroboration, someone willing to go on record." "Claire's dead. Sophie's 6 years old. Who else is there?" Emma pulled up another file on her laptop. "While you were at the fire station, I did some more digging. Claire wasn't the only person who worked for Carver and then left under suspicious circumstances. In the last 10 years, 7 employees have resigned or been terminated from Carver Development Group. Of those 7, 3 left the state entirely, 2 declared bankruptcy within a year of leaving, and 1 died in a car accident that was ruled accidental but had some questionable elements. Jesus. The 7th person is a man named Robert Chen, no relation to us. He worked as a project manager for Carver from 2012 to 2018, left voluntarily, according to his employment records. Now he runs a small construction company in the next county over." Marcus leaned forward. "You think he knows something?" "I think anyone who worked closely with Carver for 6 years and walked away knows something. The question is whether he'll talk." They found Robert Chen at a construction site 30 miles outside Riverside, supervising a crew building a medical office complex. He was mid-50s, weathered, with the solid build of someone who'd spent years doing physical labor. When Emma approached him with her press credentials and explained what she was investigating, his face went carefully neutral. "I don't talk about my time with Carver Development," he said, turning away. "I signed an NDA when I left. I violate that. I lose everything." Marcus stepped forward. "Mr. Chen, a woman named Claire Bennett was murdered 3 days ago because she was trying to expose Carver's crimes. Her 6-year-old daughter is now in foster care, alone and scared. If there's anything you know, anything at all that could help." "I said I don't talk about it." But Robert's hands were shaking slightly, betraying his emotion. "Look, I feel for the woman and her kid, I really do, but I've got a family too. A wife, 2 kids in college. I cross Carver. I don't just lose my business. People who cross James Carver tend to have bad things happen to them." "Like Claire," Emma said quietly. Robert flinched. "I didn't know her personally, but yeah, I heard she used to work in accounting. Smart woman from what people said." He paused, seeming to wrestle with something internal. I can't go on record, but hypothetically, if someone were investigating Carver's business practices, they might want to look into the Riverside Marina project. Emma pulled out her notebook. What about it? Hypothetically, Robert continued, his voice low, that project was supposed to cost $12 million. City records show Carver billed $18 million. The extra $6 million was supposedly for environmental remediation that never happened. The permits were forged, the inspections faked. I know because I was the project manager, and when I raised concerns, I was told to keep my mouth shut or find a new job. Did you document any of this? Marcus asked. Robert hesitated, then walked to his truck. He reached under the passenger seat and pulled out a thumb drive. I made copies of everything before I left. Insurance policy. I've kept it hidden for 6 years, terrified every day that someone would find out. But if it helps put that bastard away. He handed the drive to Emma. I was never here. You never talked to me. If anyone asks, you got this from an anonymous source. Emma took the drive carefully, like it was made of glass. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just make sure it counts, and keep that little girl safe. They drove back to Riverside with the thumb drive on the console between them. Marcus could feel the weight of it, the potential it represented. Claire had died compiling evidence. Robert had risked everything to preserve it. Now it was up to them to use it. Back at Marcus's apartment, Emma plugged the drive into her laptop. Files began populating the screen, hundreds of them. Project reports, invoices, email chains, photographs of forged documents. It was a treasure trove of evidence. Dad, this is incredible. Combined with Claire's files, we have a complete picture of Carver's operation. Shell companies, fake contractors, fraudulent billing, all of it. Marcus's phone rang. Detective Rodriguez. He answered, putting it on speaker so Emma could hear. Mr. Chen, we need to talk. Can you come down to the station? Is something wrong? Is Sophie okay? Sophie's fine. She's settling in with the Harpers, but something's happened. James Carver just filed a lawsuit against the city, claiming wrongful defamation and demanding access to all evidence recovered from the Riverside Apartments collapse. Marcus felt ice settle in his stomach. He knows about the documents. Worse, his lawyers are arguing that any materials found in the building are his property, since he owned the building. They're trying to get a court order to seize everything we recovered. Emma leaned toward the phone. Detective Rodriguez, this is Emma Chen, Marcus's daughter. I'm a journalist with the Chicago Tribune. Can Carver actually claim ownership of evidence in a criminal investigation? It's complicated. The building was condemned and scheduled for demolition, which muddies the property rights. His lawyers are good and they're moving fast. We've got maybe 48 hours before a judge rules on the motion. Then we move faster, Emma said. I have enough for a preliminary story. If we publish now, get the information into the public domain, Carver can't suppress it. Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. I can't officially condone that, but I also can't stop you from publishing legally obtained information. After they hung up, Marcus looked at his daughter. You sure about this? Once you publish, there's no taking it back. Carver will come after you with everything he has. Emma's expression was fierce, reminding Marcus so much of Sarah it made his chest ache. Good, let him try. I'm done watching powerful people destroy lives and walk away clean. Claire couldn't tell her story, but we can tell it for her. They worked through the afternoon and into the evening. Emma wrote while Marcus organized documents, creating a timeline of Carver's crimes that stretched back over 2 decades. They ordered pizza that went cold on the counter, too focused to eat. Emma's fingers flew across her keyboard, crafting a story that was devastating in its detail and unassailable in its documentation. Around midnight, she leaned back and rubbed her eyes. I need to send this to my editor, but Dad, once I do, this becomes real. Carver will know we have everything. He'll know we're coming for him. Send it, Marcus said without hesitation. Claire died for this. We owe it to her and to Sophie to finish what she started. Emma hit send, and they both stared at the screen as the email disappeared into the digital ether. Somewhere in Chicago, An editor was about to receive the biggest story of the year. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You should have stayed out of this. Now you've made it personal." He showed it to Emma, whose face went pale. "Dad, maybe we should call the police." "And tell them what? That someone sent a vague text. We don't even know if it's Carver or just some random threat." But Marcus felt the warning in his gut, the same instinct that had told him to go into that collapsed building. They were in danger now. Not the abstract danger of legal threats or career consequences, but real physical danger. Carver had killed Claire to protect his secrets. He wouldn't hesitate to eliminate anyone else who threatened him. "We need to get you somewhere safe," Marcus said, standing up. "Pack a bag. You're not staying here tonight." "What about you?" "I'll be fine, but you're the one with the story, the byline. You're the threat." Emma was already shaking her head. "No way. We're in this together. You don't get to play hero and send me away." "Emma." "Dad, for 2 years you've been sleepwalking through life. Ever since Mom died, you've been going through motions, existing but not living. This is the first time since her funeral that I've seen you actually care about something, fight for something. I'm not leaving you alone to face this." Her words hit him like a physical blow. She was right. He had been sleepwalking, letting grief hollow him out until there was nothing left but routine and regret. But Sophie had changed that. This little girl with her mother's courage had reminded him what it meant to fight for something that mattered. "Okay," he said quietly. "We stay together, but we need to be smart about this." They gathered everything, laptops, documents, thumb drives, and loaded them into Marcus's truck. If Carver came looking, they wouldn't find anything useful. Emma called her editor, confirmed the story was being fast-tracked for publication in tomorrow's edition. The Chicago Tribune was going all in, putting their legal team on standby and preparing for the inevitable backlash. Marcus drove them to a motel on the outskirts of town, the kind of place that took cash and didn't ask questions. They checked in under Emma's name and carried their materials to a second-floor room with a view of the parking lot. "Now what?" Emma asked, setting her laptop on the small desk. "Now we wait. Your story publishes in the morning. Once it's out there, everything changes. The FBI will have to investigate. Carver's political allies will distance themselves. His business empire will start to crumble." "And Sophie?" Marcus thought of the little girl in her foster home, probably lying awake, missing her mother, scared of the darkness. "Once Carver's in custody, once the immediate threat is gone, we make sure she's taken care of. Long term. Not just foster care, but a real home with people who love her." Emma studied her father's face. "You're thinking about becoming her guardian, aren't you?" "I'm thinking that little girl has lost everything. Her mother, her home, her sense of safety. Someone needs to show her that the world isn't all bad people and broken promises." "Dad, that's a huge commitment. Foster care, adoption, it's a years-long process. And you work long shifts. You live alone." "I know all the reasons why it doesn't make sense," Marcus interrupted. "I know I'm not the obvious choice. But Emma, when I was holding her in that rubble, when she was crying for her mother and clinging to me like I was the only solid thing in her world, I made her a promise. I told her she wouldn't be alone. I meant it." Emma's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Mom would have loved this, loved you for this." They sat together in the quiet motel room, and for the first time in 2 years, Marcus felt his daughter's walls come down. They talked about Sarah, about the good memories before the cancer, about regrets and missed chances. Emma admitted she'd left for Chicago not because she was angry at Marcus, but because staying in Riverside meant watching her father disappear into grief and feeling powerless to help him. "I thought if I built my own life, made my own career, maybe I could stop feeling like I was drowning in your sadness," she said. "But I just felt guilty instead. Guilty for leaving. Guilty for not calling more. Guilty for being angry that you couldn't just snap out of it." Marcus pulled her into a hug, something they hadn't done since the funeral. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry I pushed you away when I should have held on tighter. I'm sorry I let grief turn me into someone you couldn't recognize. I'm sorry too. Sorry I ran instead of staying to fight for you. They fell asleep eventually, Emma in one bed and Marcus in the other, the laptop still glowing softly with evidence that would change everything. Marcus woke to his phone ringing at 6 a.m. Detective Rodriguez, her voice tight with urgency. Chen, turn on the news, any channel. Marcus fumbled for the remote, and Emma sat up groggily. He found a local news station, and the image that filled the screen made his blood run cold. James Carver, silver-haired and immaculate in a tailored suit, stood at a podium surrounded by microphones. Behind him were city officials, including Mayor Brennan. The chyron at the bottom of the screen read, "Developer James Carver announces lawsuit against Chicago Tribune for defamation." "This morning," Carver was saying, his voice smooth and controlled, "I woke to find myself the subject of a vicious, unfounded attack piece in the Chicago Tribune. This so-called investigative report is based entirely on fabricated documents and the delusions of a troubled former employee who tragically took her own life last week." Emma gasped. "He's claiming Claire committed suicide. These allegations are completely false," Carver continued. "My company has operated with complete transparency and integrity for over 2 decades. We have built this community, created jobs, and revitalized neighborhoods. This attack is nothing more than sensationalized fiction designed to sell newspapers. I will be filing a defamation lawsuit, and I will be demanding a full retraction." The camera cut to Mayor Brennan, who stepped forward. "I've known James Carver for 15 years. He is a pillar of this community, and these accusations are absurd. The city stands firmly behind him." Marcus felt rage building in his chest. Carver wasn't just denying the allegations. He was using his political connections to discredit them before anyone could investigate. His phone rang again, Emma's editor, his voice crackling with adrenaline. Emma put it on speaker. "Emma, we're getting bombarded. Carver's lawyers filed a cease and desist an hour after publication. They're threatening a $100 million lawsuit. But here's the thing. The story is exploding. We've had 2 million page views in 3 hours. Other media outlets are picking it up. The FBI field office in Sacramento just issued a statement saying they're reviewing the allegations." "So we hold firm?" Emma asked. "Hell yes, we hold firm. We've got legal standing and everything in your piece is documented. But I need you to be prepared. Carver's going to come at you hard. Death threats, harassment, attempts to discredit you personally. This is going to get ugly." After they hung up, Marcus and Emma sat in stunned silence. The story was out there, beyond recall, spreading across the internet like wildfire. Carver's attempt to suppress it had only amplified it, triggering the Streisand effect. Detective Rodriguez called back. "I'm heading to the Harper's house. Carver's press conference made direct references to Claire Bennett and her daughter. He didn't name Sophie, but anyone paying attention could connect the dots. We're moving her to a more secure location." "I'm coming with you," Marcus said, already grabbing his keys. "Chen, she trusts me. If you're moving her somewhere new, she's going to be terrified. Let me be there, please." Rodriguez sighed. "Meet me there in 20 minutes. But Marcus, we need to be prepared for the possibility that Carver knows exactly where Sophie is. If he's desperate enough, if he thinks she might remember something or say something that could hurt him—" "I understand." Marcus was already heading for the door, Emma right behind him. They drove through morning traffic, Emma reading updates on her phone. The story was now trending nationally. #City of Secrets was climbing Twitter's trending topics. News vans were descending on Riverside. The FBI had officially opened an investigation, but in the comments sections, in the social media threads, Carver's narrative was also spreading. Troubled bookkeeper, delusional allegations, suicide. The battle wasn't just legal anymore. It was a war for public opinion. They reached the Harper's house to find Detective Rodriguez already there, along with 2 uniformed officers. The suburban street looked surreal in its normalcy. Kids waiting for school buses, neighbors walking dogs, sprinklers watering lawns. While inside that cheerful yellow house, a little girl was learning that her whole world had to change again. Mrs. Harper met them at the door, her expression worried. "She's in her room. She saw the news this morning. Someone mentioned her mother's name and she just shut down. Won't talk, won't eat. She just sits there." Marcus followed Rodriguez upstairs to a small bedroom decorated in soft purples and pinks. Sophie sat on the bed, holding a stuffed rabbit that Mrs. Harper must have given her. Her eyes were red from crying, but her face was eerily blank. When she saw Marcus, something flickered in her expression. They're saying Mama killed herself. On TV, they said she gave up, but she didn't. She wouldn't. Tell them she wouldn't, Marcus. He sat beside her on the bed, and she immediately pressed against his side. Your mama didn't give up, Sophie. She fought for you every single day. The man on TV, the one saying those things, he's lying, and we're going to prove it. The bad man. That was him, wasn't it, on TV? Marcus exchanged glances with Rodriguez. Sophie was sharp, putting pieces together that most 6-year-olds wouldn't. Yes, that was him. He looks different than his picture, older, but Mama was right. His smile is fake. Sophie, Rodriguez said gently, kneeling beside the bed, we need to take you somewhere safer for a little while, just until we make sure the bad man can't hurt you. Sophie's grip on Marcus tightened. Will Marcus come? Rodriguez hesitated, and Marcus made a decision that would complicate everything. Yes, I'll come with you. I won't leave you alone. They packed Sophie's few belongings, the clothes Mrs. Harper had bought her, the stuffed rabbit, a coloring book, and loaded into an unmarked police car. Marcus climbed in back with Sophie, while Emma followed in his truck with Rodriguez. The safe house was 40 minutes away, a nondescript ranch home in a quiet suburb that looked like every other house on the block. Inside, 2 federal marshals were waiting. The place was secure, they assured everyone. 24-hour surveillance, panic buttons in every room, secure communication lines. Sophie clung to Marcus's hand as they showed her around. A bedroom had been prepared for her, cheerful and bright, with new toys and books. But she looked at it all with hollow eyes, understanding on some level that safety meant isolation, protection meant losing more pieces of normal life. I want to go home, she whispered. I want my mama. Marcus knelt in front of her, hands on her small shoulders. I know, sweetheart. I know you do. But right now, this is the safest place for you. And I promise, I'm going to make sure the bad man can't hurt anyone ever again. Your mama's story. The truth she worked so hard to document, it's out there now. People are listening. Will it bring her back? The question broke him. No, honey. Nothing can bring her back, but it will make sure her courage mattered, that everything she did to protect you wasn't for nothing. Sophie threw her arms around his neck, and he held her while she cried. Over her shoulder, he saw Emma in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. Rodriguez stood beside her, talking quietly into her phone. When Sophie finally exhausted herself and fell asleep on the couch, one of the marshals covered her with a blanket. Marcus stepped outside with Rodriguez and Emma. I'm staying, he said before anyone could object. The marshals can protect her physically, but she needs someone she knows, someone she trusts. I'm suspended from the department for 2 weeks anyway. Let me stay here with her. Rodriguez started to protest, then stopped. This isn't protocol. Nothing about this case has been protocol, but it's what Sophie needs. The detective studied his face for a long moment, then nodded. I'll clear it. But Marcus, you understand what you're committing to. If Carver figures out where she is, if this location is compromised, then I'll do what I did in that building, whatever it takes to keep her safe. Emma grabbed his hand. Dad, I need to get back to Chicago. My editor wants me to do follow-up stories, interviews, but I don't want to leave you here alone. I'm not alone. I've got Sophie, and you've got work to do. Finish this, Em. Tell Claire's story the way it deserves to be told. His daughter hugged him tightly. Be careful. And Dad, I'm proud of you. Mom would be too. After Emma left and Rodriguez headed back to the station, Marcus settled into the safe house's small guest room. Through the wall, he could hear Sophie's soft breathing as she slept. Outside, the world was erupting with the story Emma had unleashed. But in here, in this quiet house, there was just a broken firefighter and a grieving little girl, both trying to figure out how to keep going when everything had fallen apart. Marcus pulled out his phone and looked at the last text message, the threatening one from the unknown number. He'd saved it, shown it to Rodriguez. Now he typed a response, something he probably shouldn't do, something that went against every piece of advice he'd been given. "Come and find me. Let's finish this." He hit send and turned off his phone. Then he checked all the locks, tested all the windows, and settled into the chair beside Sophie's door. He wouldn't sleep tonight. Couldn't. Because somewhere out there James Carver was watching his empire crumble, and desperate men did desperate things. But Marcus had made a promise to a 6-year-old girl in unicorn pajamas, and he'd keep that promise, no matter what came next. The truth was coming to light. Now they just had to survive long enough to see justice done. The morning came cold and grey, filtering through the safe-house blinds in pale strips of light. Marcus hadn't slept. He'd spent the night in that chair, ears attuned to every sound, every creak of the house settling, every car that passed on the street outside. His ribs ached, his shoulder throbbed, but his mind remained sharp, focused on the little girl sleeping in the next room. Sophie woke around 7, padding out in the oversized t-shirt the marshals had given her as pajamas. Her hair was tangled, her eyes puffy from yesterday's tears. She didn't say anything, just climbed into Marcus's lap and curled against his chest like a small animal seeking warmth. "Did you sleep?" she asked, her voice muffled against his shirt. "A little," he lied. "Me too. I dreamed about Mama. We were in our hiding place, but it was nice and clean and bright. She was reading me a story about a princess who saves herself instead of waiting for a prince." Marcus's throat tightened. "Your Mama sounds like she was a smart woman." "She was. She knew so many things. She could fix computers and cook spaghetti, and she always knew when I was scared even if I didn't say it." Sophie pulled back to look at Marcus. "Are you scared?" The question caught him off guard. Kids always knew how to cut through pretense, to ask the things adults danced around. "A little," he admitted. "But being scared doesn't mean giving up. It means being careful and brave at the same time. Mama used to say that brave people aren't the ones who aren't afraid. They're the ones who do the right thing even when they are afraid." Your Mama was right about a lot of things. They had breakfast with the marshals, whose names were Agent Torres and Agent Kim. Torres was ex-military, built like a linebacker, with a gentle way of speaking that put Sophie at ease. Kim was quieter, observant, the kind of person who noticed everything. They made pancakes and tried to keep the mood light, but everyone could feel the tension humming beneath the surface. Marcus's phone rang around 9. Detective Rodriguez, her voice tight with controlled fury. "Marcus, turn on the news. Channel 7. He found the remote, and the image that filled the screen made his stomach drop. James Carver stood outside the Riverside Police Department, surrounded by cameras and reporters. But this time, he wasn't alone. Beside him stood a lawyer Marcus recognized from high-profile cases, the kind who charged $500 an hour and never lost. "I'm here to cooperate fully with law enforcement," Carver was saying, his tone magnanimous, almost amused. "I have nothing to hide. In fact, I've voluntarily submitted to questioning by Detective Rodriguez and her team. I've provided complete financial records, communications, everything they've requested, because I know the truth will vindicate me." The reporter asking questions leaned forward. "Mr. Carver, what about the allegations in the Chicago Tribune article, the documents showing financial fraud?" Carver smiled that cold smile Sophie had recognized. "Those documents are either fabricated or taken wildly out of context. Claire Bennett was a troubled woman dealing with severe mental health issues. When she worked for my company, we tried to help her. We provided insurance, recommended counseling, but unfortunately she refused treatment. After we had to let her go for erratic behavior, she became fixated on the idea that my company was somehow corrupt. It's tragic, really. And now, unscrupulous journalists are using her delusions to attack me." "What about her daughter?" another reporter called out. "Is it true the girl was found in one of your condemned properties?" Carver's expression shifted to something that almost looked like concern. "That poor child. Yes, Claire had been squatting illegally in that building with her daughter, living in squalor, exposing that little girl to dangerous conditions. I truly hope Child Protective Services can provide her with the stable, loving home her mother couldn't. Sophie gasped softly. Marcus pulled her closer, one hand over her ear to muffle the television. But it was too late. She'd heard. "He's lying," she whispered. "Mama wasn't crazy. She was protecting me. Tell them he's lying, Marcus." "Everyone who matters knows he's lying, sweetheart. The FBI, Detective Rodriguez, they see through him." But watching Carver's performance, seeing how smoothly he deflected and reframed, Marcus felt a cold dread settle in his chest. This was a man who'd spent decades manipulating systems, buying influence, controlling narratives. He wasn't just denying the allegations, he was systematically destroying Claire's credibility, painting her as delusional, making Sophie look like a victim of her mother's instability rather than Carver's crimes. His phone buzzed. Emma, texting, "Dad, are you seeing this? He's good. He's really good. We need more. Something undeniable." Marcus stepped into the kitchen, leaving Sophie with Agent Torres, who was showing her how to make origami. He called Emma back. "We have documents, testimony from Robert Chen, financial records that prove fraud," he said, keeping his voice low. "What more do we need?" "Something that directly ties Carver to Claire's murder. Right now, everything we have proves financial crimes, which is huge, but it doesn't prove he killed her. His lawyers will argue the murder and the fraud are separate issues. They'll claim someone else killed Claire, that Carver is just a businessman whose documents were misused." Marcus pressed his palm against his forehead, frustration building. There has to be something. Claire was meticulous. She documented everything. Unless she documented her own murder, I don't know what— Wait. Emma's voice changed, became sharp with sudden realization. "Dad, the underground room. You said there were drawings on the wall, supplies, evidence they'd been living there. Did the police collect everything?" "I assume so. Why?" "Because if Claire was that careful, if she knew Carver was hunting her, she might have left something. Not just financial documents, but insurance, proof of threats, recordings, something that directly implicated him." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "The box we found was fireproof, built to survive. But what if there was another one? What if Claire hid evidence in multiple locations?" "The tunnel," Emma said, excitement building in her voice. "You said she'd marked the route from the building to the church with hearts. What if she marked other things too? Dad, someone needs to search that tunnel again, thoroughly." Marcus immediately thought of the logistics. The building site was still being processed. The tunnel ran under city property. Getting permission to search would take time, paperwork, bureaucracy they didn't have. "I'll call Rodriguez," he said. "See if she can get a team down there." But when he reached the detective, her response was grim. "Marcus, I'd love to authorize another search, but Carver's lawyers have filed an injunction. They're claiming the tunnel is part of his property, and any evidence collected there is inadmissible. Judge is hearing arguments this afternoon. By which time Carver could have his own people down there destroying anything incriminating." "Exactly. My hands are tied." After they hung up, Marcus stood in the kitchen, mind racing. Through the doorway, he could see Sophie sitting with Agent Torres, carefully folding paper into the shape of a crane. She was 6 years old, orphaned, hunted, and the man responsible was on television playing the victim while simultaneously closing off every avenue to justice. Marcus made a decision. A reckless, probably illegal, definitely career-ending decision. But some promises were worth any cost. He found Agent Kim in the security room, monitoring cameras. "I need to step out for a few hours. Personal emergency." Kim frowned. "Mr. Chen, you're supposed to stay here with the girl. That was the agreement." "Sophie trusts Torres. She'll be fine with him for a few hours, and I'll be back before dark. I promise." "I can't authorize—" "Then don't. Put it on me. I'm going anyway." He grabbed his jacket and keys, and before anyone could stop him, he was in his truck heading back toward Riverside. He called Emma, explained what he was planning. "Dad, that's breaking and entering at minimum. If you're caught, I won't be. And if I am, it'll be worth it. Claire died trying to expose Carver. I'm not letting her sacrifice be for nothing." Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, "Okay, but you're not going alone. I'm 20 minutes from Riverside. Pick me up at the old gas station on Maple." They met as promised, Emma climbing into the passenger seat with a backpack full of equipment. Flashlights, a camera, even a portable scanner. "If we find something, we document everything before we touch it. Make it admissible." "When did you get so prepared for breaking into crime scenes?" "I'm a journalist, Dad. We're always prepared." They drove to St. Michael's Community Center, now closed for renovations according to the sign out front. The building was dark, empty. Marcus remembered the basement entrance, the stairs leading down to where the tunnel opened. The door was locked, but Emma produced a set of lockpicks. "Seriously?" Marcus asked. "Investigative journalism sometimes requires creative access. Don't judge." They slipped inside, flashlights cutting through the dusty basement. The trapdoor was still there, still unlocked from when Marcus and Sophie had emerged 3 days ago. They descended into the tunnel, the beam of their lights painting the concrete walls. Marcus led them back toward the collapsed building, following the hearts Claire had drawn. But this time he looked more carefully, studying the walls for anything else. Symbols, markings, anything that might indicate a hiding place. Emma moved methodically, photographing everything, scanning the walls with her light. They were halfway back to the building site when she stopped. "Dad, look at this." On the wall, partially hidden behind an old pipe bracket, was another marking. Not a heart this time, but initials, CB plus SM, surrounded by a small square. Claire Bennett and Sophie Marie. Marcus examined the wall carefully. The concrete here looked slightly different, newer. He pressed on it experimentally, and a small section shifted inward. Behind it was a hollowed-out space, maybe 6 inches deep. Inside was a small waterproof bag. With trembling hands, Marcus pulled it out. Inside the bag was a cell phone, old but still charged, and a USB drive with a note taped to it in Claire's handwriting. "For whoever finds this, play the recording dated April 22nd. That's when he threatened me. That's when I knew I had to run. Protect my daughter. Please." Marcus's hands shook as he powered on the phone. Emma crowded close, her camera ready. The phone took a moment to boot up, then displayed a simple menu. Marcus navigated to the voice recordings and found the file dated April 22nd of this year. He hit play. Claire's voice filled the tunnel, shaky but clear. "I don't know if anyone will ever hear this, but I need to document what just happened. Mr. Carver came to my apartment today. He knows I've been copying files, knows I have evidence of the fraud. He said—" There was a pause, the sound of Claire's breath catching, then another voice, smooth and cold. "James Carver." "You've made a very stupid decision, Claire. Did you really think you could steal from me and I wouldn't notice? Those documents, wherever you've hidden them, they're not going to save you. They're going to get you killed." Claire's voice, stronger now. "Are you threatening me? I'm recording this, James. I have proof of everything you've done, and if anything happens to me—" Carver's laugh was chilling. "If anything happens to you, no one will care. You're a nobody, a bookkeeper with a history of mental instability. Who do you think they'll believe? Me, a respected businessman and city council member, or you, a single mother living on my charity? It's not charity when I earned it by keeping your secrets." "Secrets? I don't have secrets. I have business strategies you were too simple to understand. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to give me every copy of every file you've taken. You're going to sign a statement saying you fabricated allegations due to emotional distress. And you're going to disappear, take your daughter, move to another state, start over. I'll give you $50,000 to make it happen." "And if I don't?" The silence that followed was thick with menace. Then Carver spoke again, his voice dropping to something barely above a whisper. "Then accidents happen. Buildings collapse. Cars go off bridges. Single mothers disappear and their children end up in the system, lost and alone. Is that what you want for Sophie?" Claire's voice broke. "You would hurt my daughter." "I would do what's necessary to protect my interests, just like I've done before, just like I'll do again."
You have 48 hours to decide. Choose wisely, Claire. The recording ended. Marcus and Emma stood in stunned silence, the weight of what they'd just heard settling over them like a physical thing. This wasn't just evidence. This was a confession, a direct threat, proof of Carver's consciousness of guilt. "We have him," Emma whispered. "Dad, we actually have him." Marcus carefully placed the phone back in the waterproof bag, hands shaking with adrenaline and something else: vindication. Claire had been brilliant, brave enough to record her own blackmail, to hide the evidence where only someone who truly cared about her daughter might find it. They made their way back through the tunnel, moving quickly now, emergency lending speed to their steps. They emerged into the community center basement and climbed the stairs, and Marcus pulled out his phone to call Rodriguez. The call went straight to voicemail. He tried again. Nothing. "Something's wrong," he said. Emma's phone buzzed with an incoming call. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. "Hello?" Agent Torres's voice, tight with barely controlled panic. "Emma Chen, this is Agent Torres. Your father left his phone here. I need you to tell him Sophie's gone. Someone breached the safe house 20 minutes ago. We have one agent down, and the girl is missing." The world tilted. Marcus grabbed the phone from Emma's hand. "What do you mean she's gone? You were supposed to protect her." They came in through the back, 3 men, professional. They knew exactly where she was, exactly how to bypass our security. "Mr. Chen, someone on the inside gave them our location. We're tracking them now. But, Marcus, you need to get back here. Sophie asked for you before they took her. She's terrified." Marcus was already running for the truck, Emma right behind him. His mind raced through possibilities, scenarios, all of them ending in nightmare. Carver had her. Carver had Sophie, and he had nothing left to lose. Emma drove while Marcus made calls. Rodriguez, the FBI field office, even Captain Reynolds. Everyone mobilized, everyone searching. But Marcus knew in his gut where Carver would take her. Not somewhere random. Somewhere that meant something. Somewhere he could control. "The building," he said suddenly. "The collapsed building. It's his property, his territory. He'll take her there, to where it all started." Emma took a sharp turn, tires squealing, heading toward Riverside Avenue. Marcus's phone rang, a number he didn't recognize. He answered, and James Carver's smooth voice filled the truck. "Mr. Chen, the hero firefighter. I understand you've been busy today, trespassing in my tunnel, stealing my property." "Where is she, Carver? Where's Sophie?" "The little girl is fine, for now. But we need to have a conversation about what happens next. You found something in that tunnel, didn't you? Something Claire hid." Marcus's jaw clenched. "I found your confession, your threat. It's over, Carver. The FBI has the recording. You're finished." Carver chuckled, the sound devoid of humor. "Am I? Because from where I'm sitting I have something you want, and you have something I want. Seems like an opportunity for negotiation." "I don't negotiate with murderers." "Then I guess Sophie Bennett will have the same accident her mother did. Such a tragedy. The orphaned daughter, so traumatized by her mother's mental illness and death, just couldn't cope anymore. Another suicide, another broken family. The city will mourn, and life will go on." "You touch her and—" "You'll what?" "You're nobody, Chen. A suspended firefighter with a savior complex. But I'll tell you what, bring me that recording and the USB drive. Come alone, no police, no FBI, and maybe I'll let the girl go. I'm not stupid enough to—" "You're stupid enough to have made a promise to her, aren't you? I saw the news coverage, saw how you looked at her. You care about this child, which means you'll do anything to keep her safe, even something foolish. I'll text you the location. You have 1 hour." The line went dead. Marcus stared at his phone, mind racing through options that all felt like traps. Emma gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white. "We call Rodriguez," she said. "Let them handle this." "He'll kill Sophie the moment he sees police." "Dad, you can't go in there alone. That's suicide." Marcus looked at his daughter, saw Sarah's fierce determination in her eyes, saw the fear she was trying to hide.
I survived a building collapse to save that little girl. I made her a promise that she wouldn't be alone. I'm not breaking that promise now." "Then I'm coming with you." "No. You're going to Rodriguez. You're going to give her copies of everything we found. And if I don't come back—" "Don't say that. If I don't come back, you finish this. You make sure Carver pays for what he's done. You tell Sophie's story the way it deserves to be told. Promise me." Tears streamed down Emma's face. "I promise. But Dad, you come back, you hear me? You survive this, and we'll both tell her story." Marcus's phone buzzed with a text. An address. The Riverside Apartments site, just as he'd suspected. He grabbed the waterproof bag with the phone and USB drive, checked to make sure Emma had made copies of everything, and climbed out of the truck. "I love you, Em. Your mother would be so proud of the woman you've become." "I love you too, Dad. Be careful, be smart, and come back to us." Marcus walked toward the collapsed building site as Emma drove away to get help. The sun was setting, painting the ruins in shades of red and orange that looked like fire. Police tape still surrounded the perimeter, but Marcus ducked under it, moving through the debris toward what remained of the structure. "Carver!" he called out. "I'm here! Let Sophie go!" A figure emerged from the shadows, James Carver himself, impeccably dressed even now, standing on a pile of rubble like a king surveying his domain. And beside him, held firmly by a man Marcus didn't recognize, was Sophie. Her face was streaked with tears, a bruise forming on her cheek, but her eyes locked onto Marcus with desperate hope. "Marcus!" she cried out. "I'm here, sweetheart. It's going to be okay." Carver smiled his cold smile. "The recording, Mr. Chen. Hand it over, and we can all go home." Marcus held up the waterproof bag. "Let her go first." "I don't think so. You give me what I want, then I'll consider releasing the girl." "No deal. Sophie walks away, then you get the recording." Carver's expression hardened. "You're in no position to negotiate. I could have my associate snap her neck right now." "You could, but then you'd never get this recording, and the FBI would have copies anyway. They're on their way here right now. Your only chance is to let Sophie go and run. You might make it to a country without extradition if you hurry." Carver studied him, calculating. Then, slowly, he nodded to his associate. The man released Sophie, who immediately ran toward Marcus. He caught her, pulling her behind him, shielding her with his body. "Now the recording," Carver demanded. Marcus tossed the bag, but intentionally short. It landed in the rubble between them. As Carver moved to retrieve it, sirens wailed in the distance. Police, FBI, getting closer. Carver's face twisted with rage. "You brought them." "I didn't have to. My daughter did. It's over, Carver. There's nowhere left to run." For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Then Carver lunged for the bag, grabbed it, and turned to run. But the rubble shifted beneath his feet, unstable debris from the collapse. He stumbled, fell, and in trying to catch himself, grabbed onto a piece of rebar that jutted from the concrete. The movement triggered something, a section of wall that had been barely standing, held up by nothing but physics and luck. It groaned, tilted, and came crashing down. Marcus grabbed Sophie and ran, diving behind a concrete barrier as tons of brick and metal collapsed where they'd been standing seconds before. When the dust cleared, when the world stopped moving, Marcus looked back. James Carver lay buried beneath the rubble, only his hand visible, still clutching the waterproof bag. His associate had fled. And in the distance, police cars and FBI vehicles were flooding the scene. Detective Rodriguez reached them first, her expression a mixture of relief and fury. "Chen, what the hell were you thinking?" Marcus held Sophie close, the little girl's face pressed against his chest, shaking with sobs. "I was thinking I made a promise." EMTs checked them over while engineers assessed the new collapse. Carver was pulled from the rubble alive but badly injured, immediately taken into custody. The recording, miraculously undamaged, was logged as evidence. Sophie refused to let go of Marcus even when the paramedics tried to check her injuries. "Don't leave me," she whispered over and over. "Please don't leave me." "I'm not going anywhere," he promised. "I'm right here." Emma arrived minutes later, running through the police tape, tears streaming down her face. She hugged both Marcus and Sophie, the three of them standing together in the ruins of the building where this had all begun. Over the next weeks, the story dominated headlines. Carver was charged with murder, attempted murder, fraud, racketeering, and a dozen other crimes. His political allies abandoned him. His business empire crumbled. The FBI uncovered evidence of corruption that reached into City Hall, the state legislature, even higher. But the real story, the one Emma wrote with tears in her eyes, was about Claire Bennett. A mother who'd sacrificed everything to protect her daughter. A bookkeeper who'd stood up to power and paid the ultimate price. A woman who'd hidden evidence in a tunnel marked with hearts, hoping someone would care enough to find it. Marcus started the adoption process for Sophie. It would take time, paperwork, home studies, court hearings. But Sophie had already made her choice clear. "I want to stay with Marcus," she told every social worker, every judge, every person who asked. "He keeps his promises." 6 months later, Marcus stood in a courtroom with Sophie beside him, both of them dressed in their best clothes. Emma sat in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Detective Rodriguez was there, Captain Reynolds, even the Harpers who'd cared for Sophie during those first terrible days. The judge looked down at them with kind eyes. "Mr. Chen, do you understand the responsibility you're taking on? Raising a child, especially one who's been through trauma, is not easy." "I understand, Your Honor, but this little girl taught me something important. She taught me that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing the right thing, even when you are. And the right thing is giving her a home, a family, a future her mother fought for." The judge smiled. "Then it is my honor to grant this adoption. Sophie Bennett, you are now Sophie Chen. May you both find healing and happiness together." Sophie threw her arms around Marcus's waist, and in that moment, surrounded by people who'd fought for justice and truth, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt since Sarah died. He felt whole. Anyone can save someone if they're willing to listen when everyone else says there's nothing there, to fight when everyone else walks away, to keep a promise when the whole world says to let go. As the sun set over Riverside months later, Marcus and Sophie walked hand in hand through a park dedicated to Claire Bennett's memory. A plaque told her story, honored her courage. Sophie placed flowers at the base, whispering words Marcus couldn't hear but understood in his heart. "Mama would be happy I found you," Sophie said, taking his hand again. "She always said the right people come into our lives when we need them most." Marcus looked down at his daughter now, officially and forever, and realized she was right. Sometimes the most broken people find each other in the ruins. Sometimes the trapdoor you fall through leads not to darkness, but to light. Because for Marcus, Sophie, and everyone who'd fought for truth, the story didn't end in rubble and loss. It ended in hope, healing, and the quiet knowledge that some promises are worth everything. The end. Up next, 2 more powerful stories waiting for you. Click to keep discovering the courage in everyday heroes. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you believe one person can change everything.